Welcome back, lovers and friends, to this episode as I prompt us with a question that is provocative and is sure to deliver. What if the thing that you were the most afraid to want was exactly the thing that would set you free? We're going to be exploring the taboo arena of conscious kink with the intention of deeper intimacy with today's guest. Yossef is one of my dearest and nearest. He is a curious mystic at heart, and Yossef's on a mission to create a permission field for all beings to feel loved and accepted in their fullest expression. Yossef's work is focused through the complex lens of human sexuality, and that starts with the deconstruction of the cause of sexual shame, which is where our missions really align. He's creating spaces for the exploration of our truest desires while maintaining healthy boundaries. Yossef employs a wide variety of modalities like coaching and somatics, tantra, BDSM, consent frameworks, and sex education. Shape-shifting between professional coaching, body worker, pro dom, spiritual guide, and so many more other arenas that you will explore with him yourself to create unique experiences. He's also the founder and the host of Mystery Temple, which we'll get into. I'm sure you're wondering what that is, which is a little taste of that. It's a personal development workshop disguised as a Los Angeles fastest growing conscious sex party, facilitating sacred sexuality and consent workshops, which I've been to myself. And I'm going to let him share more about that with you, with his deeper intention for healing on intimacy and relation through the world of erotic expression. So, Yossef, my darling, welcome to the show.
It's such a pleasure to be here with you. We have so much history. It extends back even before I met you. So it's really nice to be with you here today.
Oh my goodness, I know. And that's one of the things we were going to talk about as well. And Yossef and I have gotten deeper and deeper over the years as we've known each other. We have so many threads in common and similarities of, our background and our journey to becoming sexually liberated and free and dropping the shackles of shame from our ancestors and our lineage line to now, being both in the sexual wellness space and sacred sexuality. And it's just such a joy to have you on and see you grow and blossom as you transition from more of your professional career into more of this kind of taboo. For those that aren't seeing, I'm doing like air quotes, right? Like taboo, which should not be taboo at all. Like it's the most amazing natural thing in the entire universe, and yet it's taboo. So I wanted to share a little bit about you and also maybe in your words, if someone was to explain your work, let's say in like a sentence to share with someone, what would that, kind of sentence be?
That's one of the toughest things to do is really to find a one sentence that sums it up. Um, and let me lead into that by saying that maybe I disagree with you a little bit. I do like the idea of taboo. I
Okay,
think the
great.
taboo, yeah, I think the taboo is what makes things sexy because if they
Mm,
weren't taboo, then there would be no kink. Kink is the overlap of where our shame and our turn on occupy the same space. And without taboo, there is no shame. And I think a lot of times, yes, I think both of us are on a mission to help eradicate shame from inside of people. But I guess my twist on it is like maybe instead of eradicating it, can we integrate it? Can we
mm.
integrate it? Can we love that part of us too? Because without that shame, then all sex would be vanilla. There's nothing wrong with vanilla sex. That's great too.
Ah,
But the shame
I
is what
love
makes
this
it fun.
angle.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually really love this angle. I haven't heard anyone explain it before, and that's what's so we're just going on right now. We're just diving right into it. I love this. What's interesting is here in Colombia, I went to a like mastermind, and when I shared about my work as the pussy priestess, the takeaway from someone was not verbatim of what you said, but very similar. It's like, what if you actually completely leaned into and like accepted the taboo and worked with that versus trying to bring it into the light and out of the taboo. And so I love what you're saying because I was literally just in a conversation with that last week, and this angle's been coming in more and more, and I would love to, yeah, I'd love to explore that on this conversation in this episode.
Yeah, I think that we're moving in the work that we do as people who do any type of personal transformation, growth, healing, or anything like that. Is really to change the languaging from to fix or even heal parts of ourselves, more to radically love, accept, and integrate all parts of ourselves. Because the languaging of fixing or healing implies broken and ill. And there is actually nothing wrong with us. And I think that we're always trying to, the old paradigm of personal development was to, like do the mindset work and break through those things and change all of that. And that can take you so far. But when you really do integration work, parts work, and you love and accept all of your parts, then you're removing judgment. And that's really the highest level of awareness that you can get to. And the degree to which we can remove judgment from ourselves removes judgment from others. And we realize that we all might have different ways that we like to experience pleasure, that we like to experience the world, and that not one way is right or one way is wrong, but they're all delicious flavors that live together.
You said something a little bit earlier about like taboo is, what did you say? It was like the meeting point of
Yeah, the kink is the meeting point of where shame and turn on overlap. And
kink.
that's
Okay, yeah.
and taboo needs to exist in society for us to have shame over where our turn on is.
Mm, mm, mm.
If everything was just like, oh yeah, that's cool, then you wouldn't have kinkiness. It just wouldn't exist in the world because everything would be chill. It's like, okay, great, wonderful. But sometimes we get turned on by doing what's wrong. So I think the idea is to realize that it's not wrong, but it is a perversion, right?
Yes.
And a perversion just means something that's off of the path that everybody else takes, right? You pervert yourself from the path. And yeah, we are the people that are going not on the road that's more traveled, we're going on the road that's less traveled. We are exploring the things that everyone else is exploring. So we do pervert ourselves from the path, and that's leadership.
Mm, mm. Yes, I love this. Let's talk a little bit about your way on the path, because I know that you've talked publicly about, being a shy version of yourself and then getting more and more into, I believe, this work and how you became confident within yourself as a man. And how has this work helped you accept your own um, kinks and shame in a way that is actually fueled more of your authentic expression and confidence?
Yeah. So yeah, definitely it was a journey with that because if I really go back and think to my earliest memories back in even before high school, elementary school, like the types of um, ways that like things that I got turned on by, they were, I go back and think about it, they were a little bit, I think, different than everybody else. There were things I remember being a young kid, and there were like even in second grade, and there was like the kissing game where the girls would chase the boys around, and it's like, oh no, cooties, and all the boys would avoid, and I would always like, oh no, I tripped and I fell, and like and yeah, and like multiple girls coming in and kissing me. I'm like, oh yeah, that's great. That's what I love. And then as I grew up and I got a lot of messaging from family, culture, society, religion, like, oh wow, these aren't the right ways to feel. This isn't the way that you should be expressing this. Then there was a lot of repression. And the repression came both from the guilt and shame from society, but also being someone who was raised by five women and six sisters and all of that, and seeing how sometimes other men acted towards women, that actually was like, oh, that was sort of like repulsive to me. And I didn't want to be that guy, but probably where I overcompensated is being more of the nice guy or the sweet guy or all of that. And that was I think that there's a difference between kindness and compassion and being nice. Being nice is more about how you want to be seen. And the need to be seen that way is almost always covering something else.
Mm,
And so it's digging beyond that. And actually, on my journey, it's been a journey of, okay, what are my desires actually, and tuning into that. And then at the same time, also having the compassion and attunement to what are the other person's desires. It's not one way or another. I don't just go, we shouldn't, as men, just go out there and just take what we want. That's not the right way to do it and sort of just overpower a woman's desires. But at the same time, we shouldn't neuter ourselves. We shouldn't uh, emasculate ourselves, because that isn't true either. And when that happens, then our normal healthy desires find unhealthy ways to go out. So it's sort of like finding that path in the middle of how do you be tuned in to who you are, your desire, your claim, and also be attuned to the desires of the person you want to connect with, so that you're not overrunning them and creating that dance that's in the middle. And that's, I think, an art form that we figure out, our whole lives.
yeah. Yeah. It's definitely, I love the terminology of an art form. Absolutely. In a dance, I always use, it's a dance of exploring, right? Like, what are the edges, getting better. And I'm curious, you're mentioning about like the desires, and I absolutely agree that the nice guy is usually not the guy that, wins and gets the girl, in the sense of because there's a part of him that is not fully there. There's a part that is still masked and still hidden. His full power isn't there. So I love what you say. I don't believe it's to put a mask on being the nice guy. I think it's like the authenticity of you, and that requires the self-confidence and the self-love and the self-worth work, right? That's for men and women. We all do that. I'm curious, when you're mentioning the desires, what did your culture or your family tell you about desires? Like, I know for me, it was like desires are dangerous, right? Like, I'm Egyptian and Lebanese, so it was like, your desires are dangerous. You can get pregnant, you can get raped. Like, if you want to look really beautiful and sexy or wear sexy things, like, it's bad and it's wrong, right? So I had to discover myself, what actually is my desire? What do I want to like lean into? And I'm curious for you, what did your culture, your family tell you that the narrative growing up was, their languaging around desire? And then what did you discover for yourself?
I think there were two things that were working on me simultaneously. One was just my mother's relationship to her own sexuality and the repression that she sort of came in with. But then I also grew up in a cult. And the languaging in the cult that I grew up in wasn't so much that desires are bad, but if you act on your desires, then you're wasting your energy. And
Mm,
the whole idea was, how can you restrict your desire? It was all about restriction was really the path to enlightenment and spirituality in this way that I grew up from age 10 till 35, basically. So it was like
wow. I
anything
didn't
you
realize you were
said.
in a cult for that
Yeah,
long.
I was, yeah.
Wow, till 35?
Yeah.
Shit, how old are you now?
43.
Oh my goodness. Wow, I did not realize that. I thought it was until maybe your 20s. Oh my goodness. Tell me a little bit more about this.
Yeah, so basically, this concept of restriction was really important, which delayed gratification, there's a lot of studies that delayed gratification is good for us, but they sort of took it to extreme. And then they also manipulated people. It's like by using it. It's like, oh, if you want something, you should push that back down and then use it to serve, which
Mm,
theoretically is really great, but it's all about serving them and everything that they wanted and needed. So it ended up working that it's like, if you really want the chocolate cake, then don't give yourself the cake. Yeah, it was the kind of thing. And we're not even talking about cake at this point, right? So
yeah.
it's like, if you want it, it's like, don't let yourself have it. Like, push that desire back down, restrict it. And that, what was taught as sort of a restriction to create a circuitry of energy, ended up for most people, myself included, becoming a repression. And any time that I wouldn't restrict, with any of the girlfriends that I had, then there was a lot of guilt suddenly around it. It's like, oh, I wasted that energy. So that was the relationship that I started having to the desires. And the thing about desires that I've learned over time is that it's this voice inside of you that speaks to you that is in congruence and alignment. And when you quiet it, it becomes quiet. When you repress it, it becomes quieter and quieter over time, and it becomes harder and harder to hear. And then the only voices you're hearing are all the outside voices of the world of what you should do and what you have to do, and all these other things. And you don't really have your own inner compass anymore. So I had to go through a process of when I left this cult to push away those voices and to like softly coax back that desire voice. And it started with like, what do I just want? What's the next one thing I want to do? Take a walk outside, go to the park, because those desires become so quiet that they're hard to hear. That's one danger of it. And the other danger of the repression is that desires that don't have a healthy outlet find an unhealthy way to come out. And for different people might be different things. A lot of times my repressed sexual desire came out into like binging unhealthy food. But some people in relationships, it leads to cheating, or it leads to all kinds of unhealthy behaviors. So desires need to be acknowledged. It's important.
Did you have a hard time trusting your desire and taking the step, or was it like did you have to build a trusting relationship with your desire? Because it's something that I talk to clients about where it's like I hear the desire and it's a whisper, but sometimes they don't act on like that next step, right? There's I say there still really is building a relationship with desire. Because I know also in Buddhism, they always say like desire is the root of all suffering. I don't believe that. I believe we have a right relationship with desire, and we get to build a relationship with it by trusting the desire and exploring, that edge slowly. So I'm curious for you, what did you start to like lean in slowly? Did you listen to it all the time? Like, for the listeners here that are maybe in this similar place, I think that would be helpful.
I don't typically begin my sentences disagreeing with the Buddha, but yeah, I don't think that the desire is the root of all suffering. I think the attachment to the desire
Yes,
is the
I
root of
totally.
all suffering. And actually, if you eliminate desire, you create a very dull life for yourself.
Yes.
And I don't think that's really congruent or true to how we're supposed to be radically alive. Don't worry, when you die, whatever happens, maybe your desire dies with you. That's coming anyway, so there's no rush. I think
Yeah.
this world is to be alive with a desire, but there's stages of that. And these are typically the stages they take people through. Even in one of my mystery temples, it's called Wildest Dreams, which is all about tapping back into desires. And the first stage is to acknowledge it. Just acknowledge it inside of you. Acknowledge that this is a desire that's true and alive inside of you. The second stage is to proclaim it, say it out loud, share it with others. Just say, oh, this is a desire that I have. And when you speak it out loud, it suddenly becomes less, it's like there's less charge around it. It's like, oh, you let the light touch it. Okay, you're just saying this is a thing I want, which is
Yeah.
different than asking for it, which is the next stage. So you acknowledge it, and then you claim it, and then you can ask for what you want. Now, in between claiming that this is a desire and asking for what you want, I think that it's very important to do the work of understanding, where did this desire come from? Is it a truly aligned inner desire, or is it one of those things that I think I should want that came from society? Oh, I think I should want a family. I think I should want kids. I think I should want to have the typical career. Is that really what you want? Or is that something that was told to you? And having that discernment of where the desire comes from is important. And then, is it something that's aligned, or is it something that was told to me? And even if it's something that's told to you and it excites you, then at least you're consciously choosing it at the moment. And it's not something that you're operating on autopilot. Because if you go and you just chase your desires without tuning into it, you'll never really be fulfilled. So it's important to
Mm.
understand the meat, the reasoning, the meaning behind it. And then you can ask for what you want. But even when you ask, it's about being detached from whether you get it or not. So
Yes.
that's sort of how I see the stages of how you work with desire. Acknowledge it, claim it, e- discover, explore where it came from, and then ask with detachment.
Hmm. Detachment is really the fundamental piece because that's
Yeah.
where we can, yeah, feel rejected, and then that rejection could spiral into unhealthy
Mhm.
behaviors to try to get that desire met with either food or alcohol or substances or porn or all these other ways that then keep it, not in a healthy expression. So I love the framework that you have for that. You have a lot of great frameworks for the work, which I love about you. Like you really take it stage by stage and step by step for people to, understand. And with the desire, I was going back to what you're mentioning. You were exploring your desires and you were learning what you really wanted. You took yourself through this similar framework, and then that's how, from what I'm understanding, you also built a stronger relationship with trusting what's truly your desire. And then would you say that that helped to cultivate deeper confidence in yourself and in your erotic expression, as well as just in and out of the erotic space, like just as a human, like as a man?
Yeah, absolutely. And to be clear, I didn't have these frameworks from the beginning. It was through sometimes not following the frameworks that I did to discover the frameworks. Yeah, because I came
But
out of
yeah,
that
good. I
world
love the
and I was
honesty.
like, I'm
Yeah.
going to eat up the whole world. And then I was like, oh wow, sometimes
Yeah.
it's like you
Sometimes
get
we got
into
to go in the deep end, to realize, okay, I don't need to be in the deep end, and
yeah.
it's all that's great. It's all experimental trial as long as we're in the dance, right? Or in the art. It's like, it's okay for that. It's messy.
Yeah, exactly that. And that's where I realized, like just because I went from repressing to my desires to chasing after them and there was an attachment there, and attachment can lead to disappointment if it doesn't work out. But also sometimes you get what you want and you realize, oh, that wasn't really what I wanted. That wasn't, there's something more, there's something that's missing there. So that's
Yeah.
sort of how the frameworks got built together. But there is something about claim that brings confidence, claim with action that brings confidence. A lot of people think that you need to build confidence to do an action. And that's just a state change. That's not something that's true. Confidence is something that naturally accompanies when you claim, set an intention, and take action on it, despite whether
Mm,
you have confidence or not. Confidence is the side effect of, of claiming and taking action. So it's not like hyping yourself up.
no.
And I think the more and more I get in attunement and alignment with what it is that I want and having detachment of getting it, that is walking confidently through the world, not just in the erotic space, in all spaces. It's like I know my lane. I'm not trying to be someone else. I'm not comparing myself to other people's lives. I'm tuned into my desires. I'm not making it about what I should have or what society thinks it should be or anything else. I just want to be the most me that I can be. And I think that's the most confident state that you can be in, is to be radically and authentically yourself. Because when you're that, you're like, I am the only energy force that's this in the world. And there's no other me but me. So if you want this, I'm the only source of that.
Yes,
That's a
I love that.
confidence, right?
Yeah, that's confidence. And it does require courage. It's like there's this cycle of confidence that everything you're saying, for those that are listening as well, it's like I just want to also name, it's like it takes the quality and living into the quality of courage to step into what we're talking about, right? So it's like the confidence comes as a result of being courageous enough to ask, to claim, to stay, to walk. It's like there really is, and that's what I really love, is like courage is to act from the heart, and that is that like soul deep alignment, when you are being courageous. So everything that you mentioned, it's like, I can also remember myself going back as well when I wasn't in a cult, but I had a lot of repression hearing what you said. And when I got out of that, right, and I had my like first squirting orgasm with my college boyfriend, and I went to like my first college fuck fest. I was like, what is this? Like, it was like from completely closed to like these doors had sprung open. And similarly, it was like chasing all of these dopamine quick fixes that were just always feeling very empty for me. And similar to what you're saying, right? And I like to just share it with my audience so they understand too. It's like everything we talk about, like we live it. This is not like us being above, we are all humans having this experience. And for me, it was, yeah, over drinking, overeating, and then like totally being promiscuous and having so much sex to try to fulfill, this hole that I felt like I needed, but it was never super healthy or fulfilling. And then it was like getting out of that and kind of recalibrating into what do I actually truly want, which can feel scary. And where the courage, for me really came forward was, okay, can I take it slower, and can I take the steps, and can I claim the different fantasies and desires that I actually have and want to, explore.
Yeah, I think that, yeah, that's exactly it.
And then from there, it was like this balancing where, in 2017, like your point was like, I came out as the pussy priestess. And I was
Yeah.
like, here I am, everyone, pussy priestess, doing the work, sharing the light, sharing the sacred sexuality component, and just
Mm.
bringing it in such a big, beautiful, powerful way. And it was, to your point, it felt taboo and it also felt very erotically turned on. And I loved it. And it wasn't
Mm.
until like, exploring more and more that again I had to work with the different noise that was coming in, and it's still very true for me today. It's like everyone who's listening to the podcast knows the show, knows me, has been through the iterations. And but I say that in the sense of like it's a consciously choosing in that moment to claim, like exactly what you said, claim it, state it, ask for it, be public about it. And it can also be vulnerable, but there's that, again, that level of detachment where I don't need people to get it and understand it. I do this for me. It felt so powerful in that way. And I believe, like you said, it becomes the most electrifying magnetic field, like you mentioned, like creating this permission field. Like I feel like, we really align in that permission, in that field of permission.
So what was your arc from promiscuous party girl to pussy priestess?
Total
Like,
promiscuous party girl. I love the PP on that.
we like some good
Oh my
alliteration.
goodness. Yeah. It's a really, that's a really powerful question. No one's actually asked me that. So I appreciate that. What was my arc of that? I would say it was being very promiscuous, like sleeping with like models and celebrities. And there was a moment where it's so funny. There was a moment when it started to shift when I was going on a date with Tyson Beckford. And I knew that if I slept with him, I would be one more on his, notch of belt of women he slept with. And there was this dance of, oh, but he's so hot in the supermodel. And then there's another part that was like a smaller whisper that's like, don't do it. Don't,
Mm.
don't do it. And it was a very little whisper of like my authentic desire
Mm.
was to hold that worth. And it was that shifting point for me that I chose not to,
Mm.
shockingly.
Mm.
And then I started to set myself on this trajectory where I would then go on a date with a guy and then I'd bring him to my house and we're in the middle of making out and it was going to go into, having sex. I just met this guy on a dating app and we had coffee and I was like, let's hook up. And in that moment, once again, my body started to whisper, no. And it was me choosing to listen. And he got pissed. He
Mm.
got a little aggressive with me. And to the point where I had to go to the bathroom and call my sister and made up a whole fake story. And then had to kind of like kick him out the house. And for me, I felt so, I don't want to say it wasn't shame. I just felt this deep misalignment and a moment of choosing myself and my sexuality as something more special and sacred than just chasing. And that shift was where I started to transition into my conscious choice of celibacy
Mm.
and chose to relearn about my desire and my sexuality and not sleep with someone for a whole year. And in that exploration, I started to realize that I actually was really numb and very disconnected in my own body, which is why I was chasing a lot of sex and things outside and all these outside desires, because there was a deeper desire that I wasn't with, which was to actually like feel the numbness and feel like the lingering grief and sadness and things like that. And once I gave myself these the space to be celibate for a year, to be in a sacred sexual practice with myself, I then, went and studied tantra and agame in Thailand, and then woke up to, oh my gosh, like this is more powerful and more beautiful than I ever could. And don't get me wrong, there was a lot of crying, there was a lot of snotty, there was a lot of like childhood sexual trauma release that came out of me that I had not touched before and was trying to fill with all these external pieces. And that was what started to really shift my trajectory. And, I guess the kind of main piece was I got into a relationship, and in the relationship, I brought a lot of my sexual energy and he loved it, but I never felt met. I didn't feel like he could hold the fullness of my energy. And I questioned my power of my sexuality, and his family didn't really accept. I was brown, he was white, from Minnesota, Midwest. I was so exotic, so different, and it wasn't a great mergence, and I felt like I was too much in that relationship dynamic. And so the arc came when I chose to break up with him, when I saw in ceremony that I would be with him and have babies and all this thing, and I chose to break up with him. And I did this divine healing work in a plant medicine ceremony with myself around sacred love and sacred union. And I met my own inner beloved. And
Mm.
I ended up going through this pussy reclamation journey with a woman who guided me through a process that we channeled together. It was a psychedelic ceremony. And I went through healing my own sexual shame and my own judgment against my body that I had as a result, this perception that I was holding. And what was amazing was all the things that I had reclaimed, like that I'm worthy, that I'm desirable, that I'm whole, that I'm sexy, that I'm like all that I'm blessed, all of these pieces. A group of like 8 people came in and started chanting over me and oming over me and reflecting back every single word that I had just said and claimed out loud for myself to me. And we kind of consummated it in a sexual ritual. And in that sexual ritual, I had this very deep experience of, I would say, like, for me, the experience was like of like Mother Mary, like the divine goddess itself coming through me, which may sound wild, but it's just the higher divine feminine coming through
Mm.
me. And the words pussy priestess came through
Mm.
was, this is your path. This is what
Mm.
you're meant to teach. This is the frequency and the energy in its pure electrical form. And that was me coming out. And I felt completely like transformed in freedom. Like I felt like any lingering shackles were gone. I felt like my wings had spread. I felt this level of just purity and innocence and authenticity in sexual energy and alchemy that I had not touched or experienced before. And that was what transformed me in the arc of going from, this very, party girl to pussy priestess. And why I just had blinders on was so clear of like, I don't care what anyone thinks. Like this was just such a deep imprint of I'm going to share this. And I did feel my ancestry and my lineage of priestesses who were in the temples and doing these types of like sex rituals and alchemy and transformation through sexual energy and ritual and
Mm.
prayer and chanting. And it was really profound, super profound for me.
I love that you shared all this with me, and yeah, I got like a lot of downloads around it as you were sharing it, this idea of reclamation. Because what I heard is a journey that I think that a lot of women go through, which is the first stage typically is that society's relationship to women's sexuality is it terrifies them, so they repress it. So number one is you repress it, and that's how you started your life. Number two is once you can no longer repress it, you exploit it. right? And that's what happens of like women's sexuality gets exploited by society. Well, if we can't push it down, we're going to use it for, men, patriarchy. We're going to use it for what we want. We're going to get what we want out of it. And
Yes.
that's mostly how society treats women and treats women's sexuality, is to sometimes even simultaneously repress and exploit it, right, at the same time. And then from there, you were like, oh no, I'm not going to let anyone else control that energy anymore. I'm going to reclaim it. And in the reclamation of it, because it is reclaiming, it's going back to the way, it's what you said, it's the way things were when, before these times of the patriarchy and the rise of society, really understood the power of women's sexuality as something that can transmute, that can heal, that can change, that holds and binds us all together. And that's what you found at the end of that, as the pussy priestess, is that lineage to that source of my sexuality exists and it's mine to express and it's mine to share and use in my own sovereignty. And that's really powerful.
Thank you. Yeah. It was really powerful and has been super powerful and really transformative, for me as a woman, but also to be able to share the potent medicine that is female sexuality, as a healing force on the planet. And,
Mhm.
the more that I believe men embrace the feminine, the more that men come into wholeness with themselves, as well as understanding more of the feminine versus a way of trying to manipulate or get something from the feminine or suppress the feminine, or be angry at the feminine. It's like, then these are these parts that they can start to come into reconciliation within themselves. You mentioned earlier integration. I feel like that's where a lot of even the work that I was doing with Pussy Priestess and talking about it is women's, but it's also collective, because again, women are in relation with other women and also with men. I really believe that we're at a time where there is this more awakening and integration of feminine energy needed on the planet for all of us, not just for women. But yeah, that was my arc around that way.
Sweet. Really, really cool. Yeah, loved
Yeah.
hearing all of that. And that's so funny. I think that that sort of brings us back to the point that we mentioned earlier, that so my path was a little bit different. I had grew up in this more repressive path first. And for me, I actually got into Tantra was sort of my bridge into exploring more, because for me, because I was in a cult and it was all like spiritual, I felt like if I'm going to explore my sexuality, what feels most safe for me is to explore it from a place of Tantra, because that's like inclusive of God, inclusive of spirituality. That feels like
Yes.
a safe bridge for me. So I got into Tantra. I signed up for my first Tantra retreat, which was actually a deep dive. It was tantric massage. So it was like right from the beginning, we're all naked in a room, massaging each other's genitals. Like, okay, so that was like, okay, great. Broke through a lot of stuff. But it was almost like the extracurriculars of what happened there, of all these people, and like really worked up, and what happens at the end of the day when they're done the lessons, that really opened my mind to other things. And coming back from that, I think that Tantra was sort of like the first path, and there I felt safer to explore into the worlds of non-monogamy and into kink and into all these other realms. And from there, I got to be really exploratory. But it's funny because when I came back from that retreat, and I was looking for a path of like, who could I study from, who could I see. There was like one friend that I confided in because I didn't really tell a lot of people about what I was doing, and she's like, "Oh, you should follow the Pussy Priestess." So you were probably like the first tantra account that I followed online. And yeah, it was like really cool transmission to get that. And it might have been around, I don't know, is that around the time you started it? Yeah.
2017 was when I came out with it publicly. Yeah.
That's right. I think, yes, that's around the time that I just got back from my Tantra retreat. So it's really interesting timing. Yeah.
It's really interesting timing. It's interesting to hear your story too, because I'm also a little bit of a flip. Before I had my whole like sexual awakening and did tantra and went to the jungles in 2015, I was exploring back in 2013 before I even knew non ethical non-monogamy by dating this love coach. And he's like, you can date me and date this guy that's coming in from Australia. And I was like, what is this? I had no communication, no framework for it. So I started exploring, non-monogamy then, and then started to explore it when I did my whole pleasure research when I broke up with that ex-partner for 6 years, where I was like, a unicorn, and then I was in like six sums, and I was like lovers and mistresses for male tantric masters, and really explored and started to get into more conscious kink and BDSM, because in college I was exploring some of the BDSM dynamics, but I didn't know what it was. It just felt naughty and different coming from a very religious background and being with a guy for 6 years who I never had an orgasm with ever. I never knew how to talk to him about sex. So it was like kind of all over. I love how like different the paths are that we all kind of take, but in some way come to a similar resolve at the ends of our paths. Is it's pretty amazing to hear your journey as well.
Yeah, and that was funny to like 2 years later to meet you in person in like our friend group. And it's like, oh wow, the Pussy Priestess is my friend now. It was really funny.
Yeah, and those transmissions were very strong. I was really serving it up, sharing a lot of more sexy photos and just really, really guns ablazing in my messaging and
Mhm.
non-negotiables, and really felt a lot of safety in my nervous system. And one of the things that I loved to be able to do, though, as a result of exploring all those things solo, was being able to then start to explore these things with my partner. And
Mhm.
that's something that was a really fun exploration of like, wow, okay, solo, because it sounds like you did a lot of this kind of solo with people you were exploring and lovers. And I did a lot of that as well. And, I wanted to also talk about the way that we can deepen intimacy, not just with ourselves, as we've been talking about, but with another, and also with your lover, chosen partner, for when you can explore things like conscious kink and BDSM. And what I actually was thinking about for this episode as well is we were talking, I think it was New Year's, we were together for New Year's and we were on the couch and we are talking about like the importance of dom sub dynamics and how that can really shift a relationship dynamic when you can understand the BDSM framework and use that as a way of playing with dominance and submission, for men to be able to create more safety for their women and women to be able to surrender more for their men. And I haven't talked about this. You're actually my second male guest I've ever had on the show. So I would love to open up the mic and explore some of this as like BDSM or conscious kink as a path for like men to be better men, but also like deeper intimacy and relationship.
Yeah, I think that what I really love about the world of kink and what it's opened my mind to is releasing power dynamics in all parts of life. And we're constantly in power dynamic relationships with, the people that we work with and with the people that run the country and the state and the cities that we like. We're constantly in power dynamics that we are not necessarily fully aware of what those dynamics look like, but that exists in relationships as well. And I don't think we think about that outside of kinky relationships, but it does exist.
Yeah.
There's always power dynamics. The person with who makes more money in the relationship has a power dynamic over the person who makes less. If there's a person that sort of saw the other person as more attractive, then they put them on a pedestal, and that way that person has more power than the person who's attracted to them. Their people's places in society, all these different things create power dynamics, and oftentimes what happens is that these power dynamics are exchanged unconsciously,
Hmm.
where it's like, oh, you're going to be my financial safety zone, sort of a non like undiscussed sugar daddy, and what I'm going to give you back is my body, my appearance, I get to be your arm candy, and you get to show me off, right? And these are the types of relationships that happen. And the problem when they happen unconsciously is that it starts creating attachments,
Mm.
expectations, entitlement, and then something that should be relational becomes transactional.
Yes.
So, what I love about conscious kink is that you bring awareness to power dynamics, and you can also play with power dynamics. So, first of all, you can bring awareness to this dynamic exists. And if you have awareness, then you're not going to do it unconsciously. You're not going to do it because you're entitled to it. You're going to do it because you're choosing it, which is already better. But then you can also play with the power dynamics and take them in different directions. And that's one of the things that I really love about conscious kink, is understanding that the person in the higher position of power actually has responsibility to hold the person in the lower position of power.
Mm.
Now, there's something comes with it. So it's not about just what you can extract from them because you have power over them. It's actually, now I'm going to hold a container for you because I happen to have more power than you in this container. And
Mm.
so it's it's a gift to actually hold the container, because then you are being like the creator. It's like you're being like God in that container, and you get worshiped in that energy of the godliness that you bring into it. Whereas the
Mm.
person in the more submissive position, they get the gift of being surrendered, of not having to make the choices, of not having to do the work. But at the same time, that surrender, submission is a lot of work. It means letting go. It means having a lot of non-attachment, right? So both of these sides of the power dynamic come with their own responsibilities. They come with their own gifts, and everybody needs to understand that and have appreciation for the work that the other person's doing in that dynamic.
Mm.
Because most people who see themselves as dominant would have a really hard time submitting. And most of the people who see themselves as submissives would have a really hard time holding the role of the dominant. So to really appreciate what the other person is doing and appreciate the relationship that you create together.
Do you find that people who are primarily dominant have a desire to explore a more submissive side and vice versa? Like, do you
Yeah.
see that often?
I think that there's a natural inner inclination to have what we don't have, to want what we don't have. And so, yes, I do see some, I mean, it's the not an uncommon trope that some of the men that hire DOMs are the men that are like in high powered positions. And the same in my work. A lot of the female clients that I work with are often the CEO entrepreneur types that are looking to experience submission. So that's
Yeah.
normal. But then there are people who are in their power positions and something inside of them craves submission but is afraid of it. And so they lean even deeper into the dom side and they start getting control issues. They're not willing to let go of control, even though they really crave it.
Mm.
I would
Hmm.
say that the desire for the opposite pole is natural, but some people resist that desire. And the same goes for people who are more naturally in the submissive role, where they feel like they're more like victims to life. They're not really taking responsibility. A lot of times those people try and like claim dominance. They want that because they want to feel like they're powerful.
Mm.
And so they want to try that pole. Whereas others, again, will resist it because they don't want the responsibility. So they can stay in their victim mindset. So each side has its shadow.
And I liked what you said and highlighting, like, we're talking about dominance and submission, which does not have to do necessarily with masculine and feminine.
Correct.
It's so just highlighting that for the audience that's listening. And something that you said, I just want to highlight is like you mentioned something really powerful for those that are listening is like there's a difference between dominance rooted in ego
Mhm.
versus the dominance rooted in care.
Yeah.
Very big energy difference that the other will feel in their body, right? Like there's the dominance of, I haven't watched it yet, but I'm going to watch it, the manosphere thing, or like Andrew Tate, where
Mhm.
he's just like, dominance, male, women are just for fucking and sex. And I'm like, oh my God, ugh, like that's so much dominance in ego, or men thinking, primarily, I find it's usually men that are thinking that women just want to be, led and surrendered. And then they'll do it in a way that's very like takey, that's done in ego, but not rooted in care. And
That's
there's
right.
so much confusion on like men to step up and be in their dominance. But what I see is there's so much confusion and the lack of understanding, which I love the framework for BDSM is rooted in care is a devotional practice and makes a huge difference in the play of the dynamic.
Yeah, true dominance is the opposite of control. True dominance is creating a permission field for the submissive to bring all parts of themselves. And you'll watch Manosphere and you'll see they're like trying to control their women because they are terrified. They are terrified little boys. And that's exactly what's going on there. They're afraid of their woman's power. And they speak very differently about their women when they're not around versus when they're there. And they see the reaction. So it's fascinating to watch. Whether the women were talking about their partners, their mothers, it's a really unhealthy relationship. But yeah, the true dominance is the opposite of I'm going to repress you. It's more I'm going to help you be expressed. And that includes two things. First of all, I'm going to create a container of safety where you know that no matter what you bring, I'm here to hold it. Your pleasure, your emotion, your anger, your full expression is all welcome here. And the second bit is it's not enough to just hold that safe container because if it's just a safe container, the person might still not fully express themselves in it. So the second part is how do you intentionally, consciously, and with care and love help push the buttons and the trigger points that will bring out that expression. Because if you just do that, if you just push buttons without safety, that's going to dysregulate a person. But if you create the safe container and then you pull it out of them, they're more likely to be fully expressed. And that's what it takes. The Dom does both of those things, is create the safety, but also the triggers.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I feel like both men and women can play that role. Like I feel like I
Yeah.
switch between like dominance, which my dominance, the expression of dominance looks different than the expression of my partner's dominance. Like
Yes.
your expression looks different, right? And there's something that I think is really cool that Kink reveals about the dynamic in a relationship and of couples being able to be vulnerable, to trust enough to play with the power versus holding on to the power. Is that something when you coach your clients or do workshops or things, do you talk about relinquishing power and like just going into the field of exploring the differences, or how do you navigate that when you notice someone's relationship to power is maybe clinging or holding, or do they can just continually like I want to relinquish power and just explore what's here?
There's multiple ways that I play with it. The first one is that I always say that the Dom, to really be a good Dom, you need to surrender to something bigger than you. That's
Mm.
what it really is. You're always surrendering to Sky Daddy, no matter what. It's like you let that divine force work through you, even when you're in the dominant position, and then you will be a better Dom. So that's number one. Number two is there often is in the couples that I work with a desire to for one of them to be more in one role and one more to be in the other, and I almost always have them switch roles first so that they
I
can
like
feel
that.
the responsibility, the effort, and what it takes to be in that other role. But I also like giving them both an experience of the surrendered first, the surrender into my container, so that they really know how to sort of direct themselves to that point, and then the Dom can step into that role as well. All that being said, I do think that our what would be best for us in terms of integration of all our parts is to be able to play in all the different roles. I think it's important to understand the roles separately and to play all the way into those extremes and edges in that polarity so you can understand it. But eventually, the play becomes something more like what you're talking about, which is that it flows and you can play between them because there are a lot of gifts on both sides. I know as
Mhm.
someone who works as a Dom, and that's mostly what people want from me, that I do crave truly submissive experiences because they're so rich and there's so much that happens there. And I think it goes the other way around as well.
Yeah, I love this. So, someone who likes to be in both, and I also will tend to play more of like a submissive role in my partnership, which is fun for me because
Yeah.
high powered. Like you said, it's like it's great, but I will also be in know how to like coax and invite more of like the masculine fire, right? So that is still a holding space, pushing buttons, being there, right? And then we can flip. But the thing that I'd be curious about for those that are surrendering, where is a level for women who are high powered that are like doing these practices that are wanting to surrender more? And where do you find is either like a limit that they continuously come up against? Like, what's one of the first or second, what's one of the first limits that you see them coming up against when they're starting to get into these kink experiences?
I think one of the things that I see often in couples, and it's almost always the woman that comes to me. The woman comes and she drags her husband behind. She's like, I want to be submissive. I want him to be more dominant. And there tends to be this expectation that if he dominates me enough, I will be submissive. And that is a relinquishing of responsibility. Submission is something that you have to be active in.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's an act of surrender, just like
It's an
anything in
active
life.
surrender.
Yeah. Okay. Keep
And I
going.
think the
Yeah.
term active throws people off because the activity of surrender is actually doing less. It's not doing, it's letting go of control, letting go of thinking that you know everything's right,
Letting go
and
of tension in the body
letting
in
go
the
of tension in
moment.
the body, softening it. Exactly. It's tension in the body, tension in the mind, tension in the heart, and trusting. Trusting to build trust as a submissive means taking a trust fall and knowing the other person will catch you. If you don't actually lean back and fall, we can't begin the work. So there is uh, an activity in submission. You have to be active in your own submission and not relinquish the responsibility to, if they only dominated enough, then I would be submissive. That's not true.
God, I love that you debunk that because that is such a thing. Like he's gonna dom me and he'll put me into my place. It's like, no, like it's a dynamic. You're
Yeah. You
contributing
have
as
to want
one.
to be put in your place.
Yeah, and it's got
Yeah.
to feel like something that you want and something that excites you and not pushing around. Although there are brats, like there's a bratty side that wants to kind of push back. And I think that's a fun way of like playing with different for
Mhm.
different maybe scenes in themselves. Can you share a little bit about some of the things that you guys do at Mystery Temple? And do you guys play out different scenes at all in Mystery Temple or in your workshops?
So Mystery Temple isn't a kink specific event, although there sometimes are kink elements to it. But I do have another offering which is called Kinky Classroom, and that one is focused on kink. And it's a fun one because it's really built like a classroom, and all the students come in dressed as schoolboys and schoolgirls or teachers. And so the whole theme's a lot of fun, and I get to be in a character. I'm Professor Daddy, and I'm teaching biology and chemistry and philosophy of kink, and it's a lot of fun. We have different categories to show and tell for all the different toys,
Oh,
and
so naughty. I
there's
can feel my whole
recess where
body
we get
being
to
like,
play.
yeah, daddy.
I don't know how you've never been to a kinky classroom
I
before.
don't know. I've never been, but I need to come to school, honey.
Absolutely. You would actually be a really good teacher's assistant, a TA, every
I
class.
would be a very good TA. I'll bring my apple. I have a
Absolutely.
ruler.
Yeah, you got to put some people in place when they're
Yes,
put
I'm
them in their
happy to do
corner. Yeah,
that.
exactly. So yeah, and what I love about Kinky Classroom, it's like you can come in not knowing anything about kink and walk away with like decent skills to start your own scenes.
Mm,
Because what I focus on first, before we get to toys and rope, spanking, and all that stuff, it's all important to know that is the energetics behind it. You have to be able to hold the pole of Dom and sub and understand how they feel in your body. So that's where the somatics comes in. You have to understand the somatic experience of what each of those is like because they have different fields. A dominant field is very large and like goes outwards and upwards, and a submissive field is very small, going downwards and inwards. A dominant field is hyper aware of their surroundings, and a submissive field is hyper aware of their internal landscape. And you have to really understand those different places from a felt sense in order to be able to hold it, or else you're just performing.
Good piece. Good distinction there. Good distinction. And well, would someone say that a scene is a performance, or would you say a scene is a way to play out authentic expression? Like how would you explain that to the audience who maybe doesn't even know what a scene is actually?
Yeah, a scene is a chosen container to play out in these different power dynamics. And so there's the main archetypes of dom and sub, but there's sub archetypes, huh? There is archetypes within the bigger archetypes because there's very different energy between a daddy dom and like a master or a king or a slave owner, right? So these are all different archetypes that you can play into, and the same with the submissive side. And there's a difference between a brat or a princess or a baby girl, right? These are all different energies.
Or
So
the
you can
goddess to be
or
worshipped.
or the
Yeah.
goddess, right? So the
Yeah.
goddess is again in the dom role. So you can be like a goddess and a worshiper, right? So you can play in different dynamics. They're all going to look very different. They're all going to make
Yeah.
you feel very different ways. So I always say when you're forming a scene, it's really important to understand first what do you want this scene to mean to you and how do you want to feel. And based off of those two answers, you'll pick the dynamic that's right for you and you'll bring in the experiences that are right for you because anything can happen in a scene. A scene could be sexual, it could be non-sexual, it could be focused on healing, it could be about fun, it could be about expression, it could include bondage, it could include impact play, it could be psychological play, it could be a combination of those things. So there's so many different things that can happen within it, but in order to create a scene you have to have the intention and the communication frameworks ahead of time to create it and to create that safety to hold that scene.
So in the communication framework, are we talking about explicitly sharing like desires, limits, like non-negotiable aftercare, things that we'll need for check-in, or those are part of the things that are discussed before you would then go into acting out the scene?
That's exactly right. So I would say start with what it means and how you want to feel. And from there, you go into the specific desires that you want to have, ways that what do you want to be called? What do you not want to be called? What are your boundaries? What are your limits? What are edges? And an edge is different. An edge is something I'm willing to explore if I feel safe enough. And if I have edges, what do I need in order to explore those edges? We talk about safe words, which are how do I extract myself for the situation if it doesn't feel right, or at least take a pause? And of course, aftercare. What do I need afterwards? To the degree that a scene is intense, it needs more care afterwards. So that's a lot of different ingredients
Yeah.
that put into place to create a really successful scene. And it takes a lot of communication. That's the gift, I think, of kink frameworks is that they provide communication on levels that I haven't seen in the tantric world or other facets of the sexual world. They're really precise with their communication frameworks.
Yeah, I think that's a really important piece. And I have my own opinion, but I want to hear it from you. You know, someone who would explore it, besides someone thinking, okay, I'm going to just explore it because it's fun and I want to explore power dynamics. Can you talk about the fruits of like why and how exploring scene, like let's say doing a scene with your partner or chosen partners or lovers, how could that really be beneficial? What could be some of the unexpected fruits that can come as a result of exploring, sacred sexuality and kink in these ways that go beyond just, okay, that was a cool, fun experience. Like, great,
Mhm.
I don't want to just continuously indulge in this for the sake of indulging, right? I hear that from not my clients, but I hear that from people on the outside where they don't understand the fruit. So I'd love to hear from your perspective, to the audience, like, how does that affect intimacy? How does that affect your life? Like, what are some of the fruits that come as a result of being in this work and integrating more of this into your life?
I truly think that kink has the capacity to be one of the most powerful frameworks for radical self love and self acceptance. Because what happens in these edgy spaces is you might bring parts of yourself that you don't typically show the rest of the world. And first of all, you give yourself permission to express them. And second of all, you get to be witnessed by the person that you're in partnership with, which is a person that loves you and cares about you. And they get to see these parts of you. And you get to see that even if you're crazy, or even if you're wild, or even if you're slutty, or even if you're pathetic, that you're still loved no matter what part that you've brought. And that strengthens a relationship, because that's true deep intimacy, not just the sexual kind, but you become emotionally intimate, spiritually intimate, intellectually intimate. And that really can strengthen the relationship, to see that all of my parts are loved. And when you get witnessed in that way, you witness yourself in that way. And the way you show up in the world is like all of my parts working together instead of working against each other.
And how would you say, when you said earlier, like in the taboo, it's not about healing ourselves, it's about integrating. How does this also take us from the old school mindset, like you said at the beginning of it, like I'm being healed through this, into it actually like maybe interrupting your old lineage line so we don't pass it on, and also just becoming more integrated? How do we use
Sure.
this not from like a healing lens, but as a reclamation or empowerment or integration place?
So I truly think from a place of non-judgment, then we move beyond the ideas of healing or fixing. Because again, we're not broken, we're not sick, we're not bad, we're not wrong. Um, what it we see ourselves as whole. We see ourselves as being in a place, again, that all of our parts are loved. It's impossible. Again, this is the way I see the world, my spiritual lens. It's impossible that something was created inside of us that doesn't belong.
Mm.
Like, how could that possibly be? If it's a part of me, it has a divine reason, a divine permission to be there. It's my relationship to those parts that creates suffering or not. And it can look a lot of different ways. Like, I think the obvious is like, oh, I'm like angry. That's not okay. I should repress and push that away. No, my anger teaches me about what's important to me and my boundaries. But then some people repress their power, they dim their light. They're like, oh no, I shouldn't shine, tall poppy syndrome. It's like, oh, if I shine too bright, I'll make other people feel bad. Okay, so what are you holding back? So, in all sense, these are all parts of you that each one of them has a divine permission, has a divine reason, and they're meant to work together. If it exists, there's a purpose for it. So, how can we find the purpose in all those parts, and how we can get them to work together?
Mm. I love when you talk about that. I can feel such a warmth, and you talk about radical self-love. You talking about it, I could feel the level of deep love and acceptance you have for yourself, which
Mm.
is just so beautiful. Like, you really live this work, you've really walked this path, and it's, amazing because there's so many different types of teachers you can learn from, all of these different things, but you're really a trusted teacher that I know and that I love and that I would come to as well. And it really is a testament to the way that you have held yourself and have integrated all these parts of yourself. It's just beautiful. I just wanted to give you that reflection as that you're sharing. I was like, oh my gosh, like I could just feel that level of love, and it made me love you even more. I'm like, oh, you're just so great, you're just you're so amazing.
It's definitely been a journey. Yeah, not too long ago, I was definitely very self-deprecating, and the path to self-love is ongoing, to love this part too, this part too, this part too. The thing I used to think was ugly, that was gross, that was pathetic, and to just love them and bring them all home.
Mm. Do you share those parts in an open way in your relationship, or how do you make sure that they don't go and get back hidden in a closet down below?
Yeah, I think that I'm very grateful and lucky in the relationship that I have now, that I have a partner who can really hold and see all those parts. And yeah, she's really powerful at loving me into my greater states of being as well. I know you know her.
Yes,
Um,
we love her so
yeah,
much. We love her.
yeah, yeah, I feel
Yeah.
very blessed in this relationship to, yeah, we were doing, parts work in kink before I was getting into it, just by, um, yeah, her witnessing me in all my different ways, and me witnessing her in all her different ways, and continuing to love on each other, not
Mm.
spite. it, but because of that intimacy.
And that's really something, again, as we kind of begin to wrap within the energy of like coming kind of full circle of like, this is an example of us continuously being in the work, like learning to continuously love ourselves and reach our edges, and hearing even from you and myself, like having a partner to be able to do this work with, or a chosen lover that you feel really safe, that is committed to loving us unconditionally and seeing us in our highest, is, I believe, from my lens of perspective, like the part of us that chose to be on earth and reincarnate into these bodies and have this human experience of ourselves as, the divine, and go through this spiritual maturation process that can only be done, from my perspective, through our sexual lens, through our sexuality. I don't see how we grow and evolve spiritually and mature without bringing our sexuality and without the container of deep intimacy, and being willing to learn and grow in that way. And I just see and love that you guys have that space in the container. I love you and your partner so much. And it's great to hear you and the authenticity, as well as you're continuously on your journey, as I am, as we all are, learning and growing.
And it's been amazing to watch you really be matched in partnership as well. And funny that just a couple days ago, uh, my partner was on your partner's podcast and show
Podcast. Yeah.
because they're
It's
very much alike in what they do, and then we're more alike in
so
what we do. It's
it's
hilarious.
it's great, and it's like such a great, great match for us, right? And it's like we're talking about, like, we're here and they're there, and yet we're so complementary and we're also in love. These are just such deep invitations that we have for, ultimately teaching ourselves, but teaching each other and sharing this, work with the world. And for those that are also looking for like a safe space in a community, like, I cannot say enough, like how trustworthy and clean your containers are. We got to explore one of your mystery temples ourselves, and we didn't fully actively participate, but we definitely learned some new techniques. We learned some new things that we didn't know was an erotic turn on that we've brought into our relationship dynamic, one being some choke play and breath play, which was a whole new thing thanks to you. And so, I would say like your space is a very clean, clear, safe space. And so, if you're interested in exploring and you're listening to this, what are some of the ways that people can get into your community? Because it's so important. Like, as we've both been sharing this whole time, we didn't do this on our own. We like learned and went to teachers and worked with masters, and we were in community exploring, this world and work. I think it's really important. So how can they get into your work and the community that you've been creating?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the best ways to connect with me are actually Instagram is the best, Yossef Sagi, or my website, yossefsagi.com. So just spell my name right and it'll work out. Um,
Put it all in the show notes. Don't worry. Yeah.
exactly, exactly. And yeah, those are the best ways to get connected for to actually join the events. There's an application form. It's in the link in my bio because we carefully curate it. And then for my one-on-one work or couples work, it's just DM me, reach out, and we get the ball rolling from there.
Beautiful. And what do you have on the docket that you see for the rest of this year? Do you have any retreats coming up? Do you have any? Yeah, share with us.
So in LA, I regularly have a series of workshops and play shops that we do. We have an event called Pleasure Play, which is all about, it's like a sexy movement, not a full play party, but really like through your body and connection with others, to really tapping into your eros. And I have also guest speakers that were leading workshops on role play and tantra, and I'll probably do another kinky classroom or something this year. I'm also planning, it's not in the books yet, but likely in October to do my first retreat in a while. So that's coming down the line, but hasn't officially been launched yet.
Well, stay connected to him on IG so you'll find out when you get in. And is that going to be application only as well?
Yeah, there's always an application for all of
That's
them.
right. There's always an application.
That's
That is right.
right.
Well, before we wrap, I always have someone share one last pearl of wisdom as just your final kind of pearl that comes through that you would love to leave as a blessing and a gift for everyone who's listened today?
Mm.
Mm,
So, what's come through very clearly for me recently, especially in the work that I've done so much as a man by stepping into my dominant role to elicit more surrender in the feminine, is also the understanding that in order to move the world forward from the place that it's at, where so many men are actually controlling, exploiting women, is that even more important these days than us being in a strong dominant role is how can men be in an active submissive role in order to elicit more feminine wisdom and leadership in our relationships and for the sake of the world, because that feminine leadership, I don't think we even know what it looks like today. A lot of women maybe lead from a masculine way, but our world has been robbed of its feminine leadership, and it's going to take being quiet, actively listening, and actively surrendering into that feminine wisdom and leadership to take us where we need to go next.
mm-hmm. Yeah. Beautiful. Beautiful. Great way to bring it home to the feminine. Well,
Strongly feel that. Yeah.
yeah, it's so good. Well, it's been such a pleasure to have you on the show. And I just love and adore you so much. And can't wait for us to connect again in person, body to body, and hug when we are back together in the same place. So thank you so much for your time, your wisdom, your vulnerability, and your, love on the show. I really appreciate you.
I really appreciate you and love you loads.
Love you loads. Thanks. All right.
Bye.
Bye.